Before I start with this episode, I just want to give a quick shout out to Podmetrics. Yup, Podmetrics is the platform I use to get all the data I need for the show. From who listens to me, all the way to where they come from, Podmetrics takes care of all of that so I can make better content for you. You can even integrate Podmetrics with Facebook and YouTube so you can get more data from your live streams. So if you're a podcaster or want to start your own podcast, go visit podmetrics.co and sign up for free. Use my code JakeOfAllTradesWithDelRo. With that out of the way, cue the intro music. What is going on, everybody? Kamusta kayo lahat mula sa Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, or wherever the heck you are on the planet? This is your one and only Jake of All Trades, the place to be for any niche, every genre, and all generations. I am your master of ceremony, D to the E to the LRO, aka JDR, aka the extraordinary introvert. So guys, once again, we'll have to settle with these headphones for a while. I'm really sorry if in the previous episodes my audio hasn't been up to par, but I guarantee you guys I will eventually invest and buy a condenser mic soon. If anything, that is going to be the first thing I will buy with my first salary. So speaking of salaries, you see what I got? You guys see what I did there? But yeah, speaking of salaries, that is exactly what we are going to be talking about today, because as I've been mentioning in the previous episode, recent hire lang po ako. So I'm just entering the world of employment, of work, and we are just going to discuss, what it feels like to be working, what it feels like to go through that interview, the things you need to prepare, and all that other good stuff. If you are a listener, either starting out work, in the middle of your work, or unemployed pa. And it's only fitting that I invited this guest, who is a recent hire as well. He will tell you guys more about himself later, but he's also from the Ateneo as well, just a batch lower than me. He'll tell you guys all about himself later. So without further ado, let's give it up for my colleague, my co-worker, Mr. Carlos Cruz-Herrera.
Thank you for having me. Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's truly a pleasure. And by the way, quick shout out to our team, to Sir Chris, to my guy Darren, to Bianca, to Mika, and to Nico. So hopefully you guys are tuned into the show. Two of your colleagues here are, doing this podcast. So before we start, you know the drill. I'm not sure if you know, but as with any other guest, go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners. The floor is now yours, buddy.
Okay. So what's up, guys? As was mentioned before, I'm Carlos Cruz-Herrera, and I'm a fresh graduate from Ateneo de Manila University. So recently I was employed, as what was also mentioned, and yeah, so I'm really excited to be here and talk about my experiences, or my new experiences as someone who was just recently employed.
Yeah, super swerte niyan. No? Like, it only took him about 2 to 3 months. Meanwhile, for me, it took me a whole year. So, and to get work in this time na sobrang unpredictable yung situation natin. Like, yeah, pretty darn lucky. But also, kudos to you for finding a way, like figuring out the employment life, and even the life before that. So that's exactly what we're gonna discuss first. So, what was the feeling like after graduation? Like, did you want to find work right away, or did you want to go my route? Take a couple of months off and really just rethink your life, how it will, go from here on out. Like, what was the game plan for you? Like, after you marched down the aisle, after your grad?
Oh, well, actually, I didn't really, like my batch, we didn't get to March.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yes, because in the middle of March, in the month March, classes were suspended, and then I just kept getting suspended after that. So eventually, we switched to online learning at that point. So yeah, I guess the feeling of graduating wasn't as spectacular like as I expected or wanted to. Same for my batchmates. Cause yeah, yun nga. When we didn't get to march, we didn't even get to say our last goodbyes and all that.
Yeah.
But I guess in trying to put it in a entering the real world employment perspective, it was, I would say it's different. It's not like the normal way you transition from school to work, because like I said, like when classes were suspended March, and then we graduated, we marched online nung, I think it was June 1 or May 30, something like that. So at that time, it already felt like the entire months leading up to our official graduation, it already felt like a break that a lot of people would think that they could do after graduating. Kasi diba some, they won't get a job agad, stuff like that. So I guess a break was something I was also thinking about before trying to get a job. But being here at home for like, what is it? It's August already. Since March, I've been here since March. Um, yeah, it kind of felt like a really long break too. So in trying to transition from school to finding a job, I guess the one thing that I really try to do is to continue learning.
Yeah.
I mean, you can never stop learning, and
Of course.
being
That's-
online right now, there are so many resources you can take advantage of. And the job that I got right now as an SEO content writer, it's something that happened kind of out of the blue. Cause for background lang, I'm a psych major, so AB psych. So I got this course going into Ateneo because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and I felt like going for psych was something that's flexible and something I would still enjoy. So only when I was in third year college was when I was kind of like already planning what I could do in the future. And in Ateneo kasi you have, in third year you have the OJT. So one of the things that I went for was being a psych student, like human resources stuff. So I had an internship when I was in third year. And then when I went through that, I realized that it's not really something that I wanted to do. So after that point on, I was trying to think of ways na parang, what's something that I feel like I could contribute like really greatly and I could learn a lot. That was when I kind of shifted more to corporate stuff like management or like marketing. So when that was in my mind to try to build up my skills for those things, build up my knowledge. And one of the things that I did was I actually attended an online course. It's free lang, Harvard Business School online. So I was lucky enough to be able to enroll for that one.
Yeah.
And then after that, this was during the time when the quarantine and pandemic was going on. So being here at home, I was thinking of ways that would ways I can adapt to the situation. So that was when like digital marketing came up to my head. So stuff like social media, stuff like anything digital, like website and stuff. And that was when I came across something like copywriting. So copywriting is basically you're the one in charge of the copy or the text that's on different web pages, landing pages on websites. And SEO, meaning search engine optimization, you're the one in charge of basically putting the right words in the website to drive more visitors and traffic. So that's something I found really interesting because before I just thought that when you make websites, like the words you use there are just things to make it like just surface level things, but underneath it, it's actually a lot more than that. And it's really important that you get the right content, the right copy on your sites. So my direction going towards something like that is more of an adapting thing that I went for. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with how I got here today.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I like what you did there. You tried out different opportunities to your OJT. You also took online classes similar to what I did, during my gap year. And it just goes to show there's so many resources now, especially because it's 2020,
Yeah.
ang daming resources, ang daming means to learn, whether it's formal or informal. So it just goes to show you that there's so many opportunities out there. It's just all about grabbing them as much as possible. So now that we have that out of the way, I'm sure, during the quarantine or even before that, you were thinking about, writing up your CV or your resume, formulating your cover letter, and just getting all the documents out of the way para pagdating ng hire or pagdating ng interview, you're good to go. So what was that like for you? Was it hard, or did you need a lot of help, or was it pretty seamless lang for you, like as you were making your resume, as you were making your cover letter and all the other important documents that you will need for eventual employment later on?
I guess when it comes to writing a CV or resume, if you have like no experience whatsoever trying to write one, you kind of feel lost on where you should start or what you have to write. But I guess one good thing that you do have is that you can just Google how to
Yeah.
make the right CV or resume, or what's the difference between a CV and a resume. And then at the start, I guess it was kind of hard for me then. The first CV I had to make was for my internship, like what I said previously.
Yeah.
And when you write a CV, I guess the things that you're thinking of is, oh, what are the experiences I've had before? What are the responsibilities I've been in terms of school group works or like org works. So background lang for me, I didn't really have much of those things the first time I wrote a CV, and that was when I realized, like, oh, I think I should step up, like I should pick up the pace with the things that I could be doing that could improve not just how I look on paper, but like my skills and the things I can actually do.
Yeah.
So after I made my first CV, and I guess I submitted it to my internship. Luckily, I was still accepted despite my limited experience. So I think it goes to show that it's also important to also prepare for the interview, because the word, like your CV or resume, it only has like words and stuff like that they can see on the surface. But if you can't back it up during the interview, if you don't have, I guess, the right mentality or attitude that they're looking for, then your colorful looking CV might not be it's not really, I guess, the reason why you're going to be accepted. A lot of companies these days, I feel like they really value more of company fit, like the values you have, the kind of culture you can bring to the table. So I think when you're someone who's going to go for your first job or internship, keep in mind that it's really important that you have values that you really want to show out there. Because a lot of companies these days, like I said, I feel like they really value those a lot compared to just your skills. Because skills and other stuff like that, they can be learned.
Yeah.
Like you can learn a lot of those. And so it's important that you can back up yourself with actually your attitude and mentality. And that will go a long way in terms of your career. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. I couldn't agree anymore. Although before we get to the interview part, because that's really, I think, the boss level of any hiring. But before we get there, I just want to ask, like, when it came to writing your CV, your resume, and all that other stuff, did you need any help, or did you pay someone to do these things, or were you still able to do them on your own?
I did them on my own. I didn't really look to pay for someone to help me, but I guess I asked help from people who've had experience writing CVs, like upper batchmates. 'Cause, the first time I tried to write one was when I was in third year. So I had like fourth year org mates and friends who had experience. So yeah, I mean, you should always ask help from others if
Yeah.
you're starting from somewhere you don't have much experience in. And yeah, I really recommend that you send your CV to your friends or to maybe, I don't know, your parents or other relatives who have experience with these things. And they're going to tell you, I guess, the things that you could change, things that will make your CV look better and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is so true. When in doubt, just seek help. Like, wag kayo mahiya humingi ng tulong sa ibang tao because they'll
Yeah,
really go a long
exactly.
way, like in the long run. Anyways, now that we have the CV and the resume and all that stuff out of the way, you did mention that as much as it's nice to have a presentable or a good-looking CV or resume, it should reflect the person also. Like it's not enough that you have a really detailed cover letter or really detailed resume only for you to not really show up like when you first meet that HR or that potential boss of yours. So now I want to talk about honestly I think the most dreadful part of any hiring, and that's the first interview.
For
Believe it or
sure,
not, I'm
for
not
sure.
gonna lie. Literally the night before, Sir Chris, Miko, and Bianca like called me up on Zoom. Sobrang kinakabag talaga ako. It's not on them, but it's really on me. Like every time I have an interview, I always have that kabag factor, and minsan the night before di ako makatulog out of excitement, out of nervousness, all that stuff. So like, can you share me your first interview experience? Like, what was it like for you? Like, I'd really like to know the feelings, the emotions, and
Yeah.
just the insights that you had nights or days leading up to that first interview.
I'm sure, like everyone else, you really feel nervous when it comes to your first interview. I remember when I had mine with the internship I got, I was really nervous going into that. Like the day before, I was literally just writing down like a script that I could keep in my head so that I know what to say. And I googled a lot of tips on how to prepare for interviews as well. So there are a lot of I guess commonly used interview questions, and so I use those as like a basis of I can what I can answer if ever those questions come up. So I think that's really important thing to do if you're preparing for an interview. You should really recite and do your research on what kind of questions might be asked, because a lot of the interview questions that you're going to be facing, it'll either just be specific about the job, like what can you do, or what do you have experience about it and stuff like that, and then another would be stuff like the qualities you possess. So they want to see your leadership qualities, if you have experience with that, how you work with others, how you are alone, um like if what challenges you face and how you've overcome it. So stuff like that. So those are the things you have to keep in mind. And at the same time, when you go into an interview, make sure that every detail in your resume is something you can back up on. Because like for example, you have there that you were an org member and you had a really, I guess, a high position, so you had responsibilities. So keep in mind if there it's possible that the interviewers would ask you about that and what you've actually done. So make sure that you have like anecdotes or stories you can back it up with, and just go straight to the point on what you had to do, what qualities you had in order to accomplish that specific situation. So stuff like that. It's really important to practice and practice.
Yes.
I remember I practiced with my girlfriend for like 2 or 3 days before I had my first interview, and it's what helped the most, because a lot of like maybe for some of you, you might be like a good speaker, like it's easier for you to speak, like enunciation and stuff like that. Like for me, sometimes I find it hard to actually talk really well, so I really have to practice. So practicing beforehand, like the day, like few days before, really helps you build up that feeling na parang, okay, so this is how I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna speak loud with confidence, and you just want to sound sure with whatever you're saying. They don't want to see you nervous and not really. They might think you're you're not sure why you're there in the interview. You want to give them a reason to hire you, so you have to be confident as well. So yeah, it's normal to be nervous if you're gonna go into your first interview, and maybe even second and third interviews after that. But I think being nervous is great because that means you're in an opportunity to be courageous. It's an opportunity for you to learn to how to face those kinds of situations, and each and every time after that, you're gonna do better and better. So that's fine.
That's so true. And actually, like I want to share some interview experiences I've had. So actually, no October, around October of last year, I had an on-site interview. Basically not virtual before, or back when we could like go outside and stuff.
Yeah.
So thankfully, like my first interviewer ever he was pretty nice, and even though it's not within my interest or my line, because it's like finance stuff, like you could really tell that he was so engaging. You could really tell he really considered having me in their company, but at that time it was too early and it was finance, so it's something not within my line. So I nicely passed on them, but it just goes to show you have no control talaga on who will interview you. Because back in June, I had another interview, and this is for a US-based organization, and let's just say it did not go well. Like first 5 minutes pa lang, you could tell he wasn't in the mood because we did it through Skype, and he's based in, I think, Florida. I won't mention his name, don't worry about it. But he's based in the US, and first seconds pa lang, like he noticed that my mic was off, so he just yelled and all that. And even the guidelines of his work, it was so intimidating. Like basically, to like paraphrase, and I know we shouldn't cuss, but professionals don't leave S word on the floor. So basically, it was terrorizing, to be honest. And like ever since that interview, I was super like, I know I shouldn't take things personal because it's not on you most of the time. Like it's really on the circumstance or on the situation, and maybe even on the interviewers then. But that kind of raised my anxiety for a couple of weeks and months.
Yeah, for sure.
And then came along, sina Chris, sina Bianca, sina Miko, and eventually si Darren. And thankfully, it was the exact opposite of that interview I had back in June. You could tell na the community that we have over here, it's very engaging. We get stuff done, but at the same time, they really give off an environment na they don't want to make you more nervous than you already are. So that's really like good. And I actually want to ask about that. Like, we have no control of who interviews us. We have no control of who our future bosses will be. It's not like back in Ateneo where you could choose your profs and look at reviews. So real world, guys, sorry, pero wala talagang bosses to pick. There's no such thing as that. So I guess for you, how do you handle like every situation without taking it too personally? Because me, I'm a very sensitive person, not gonna lie. Or it's hard for me to like move on kagad after these things. But for you naman, how do you handle situations? If you had any, of course. But I guess for those of our listeners who may be a little bit nervous coming into that first job interview, like what would be solid advice like for them that you could give them based on your own personal experience as someone who's been through the interview process yourself?
I guess some advice I could give is that don't be too harsh on yourself if you felt like you've had a terrible interview or stuff like that, especially if it's your first time. I mean, no one can not everyone can get it right the first time. So I feel like at the same time, it's this is the real world kind of stuff. So you can't expect that everything will be handed to you. You have to really work for it or prepare for it really well. And yeah, sometimes even if you do prepare really well, you won't get what you wanted to get. So that's also a bummer. Um, so I guess at the end of the day, you should just remember that even if you've had a bad interview, or if you think na parang, oh, I should have said this, I could have done better, there are always more ways to make up for it. So there are always opportunities to learn more and how you could have done better. And I guess if you don't make mistakes, you wouldn't know what kind of things you can do better next time. So keep in mind that as much as you have to prepare really well for interviews and stuff like that, you should also take it easy on yourself. Um, if you do, I don't want to say fail, but more of like if you weren't able to succeed immediately as you kind of expected to. Um, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's so true. I couldn't agree with that. It's all about just staying the course lang. Of course, practice makes perfect. But even if you practice, like, it's inevitable that there will be some missteps along the way. There will be some errors that you make, because practicing is different from the real thing. Like, well, let's admit that. But it doesn't mean that you're not skilled enough. Doesn't mean you're not good enough. Like, these things just happen. So it's all about just preparing lang for either the best case.
Circumstances vary. It just
Yes.
depends sometimes.
So it's either you get the best case or the worst case scenario. So it's all about being ready and prepared.
It
for
just
those.
happens.
Definitely. So now I want to talk about actually getting hired. So for me, it was such a big relief because after a whole year of just scrambling for work here and there, I eventually got it. So at least for you, like, it didn't take too long. And given our circumstance nga na sobrang unpredictable, a lot of businesses are closing down, a lot of workers are getting laid off, to be quite frank, and a lot of people have been taking pay cuts. So I guess for you, what was that initial feeling of getting hired na? Because, well, to share muna for me, it was relief, and at the same time nakakapanibago because after months of just resting, deciding, and all that stuff, now you have to follow this sort of schedule. Like, you have to follow a sort of rhythm, and it took a while. Don't get me wrong. Like, the first few articles, sobrang mahirap, which is why I have to credit si Darren talaga for guiding me all throughout. And look at us now. Well, at least in my case, after 2 weeks, I've been able to accomplish as much articles. So ikaw naman, what was that feeling that you got, like, the moment you learned about the news of you getting hired, up to this very day that you've completed your first week of employment over at our new company?
I guess like what you said, it's a huge feeling of relief that finally, okay, I'm hired. I have a job. There's an offer for me, and it feels really good. Like, it really boosts your self-esteem as well. Now, okay, like, these people, they see something in me and they want to hire me. So yeah, so stuff like that really feels good na there's a group of people or company that feels like they could use your, like, the assets you bring, or like the culture, personality, or the skills you can bring to the table. So it feels really good. And before I got this this job, I actually applied for other job opportunities as well. So the first one I applied for was for this big company. I won't name them now, but it's one of those, like, big management trainee leadership program, innovation program, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, at that time, I was also proud of myself for actually making it to I kind of made it to the last cut out of 200 applicants. So it was like a group case study type of thing. But unfortunately, I didn't make it past the group study, because after you have the group case study, they're gonna, like, pick from those groups and go for an individual interview. So I didn't make it to that part, but nevertheless, at least I still tried, and I also proved to myself that I could make it this far at least. So even though I didn't get into that one, I mean, no regrets. Where I am right now, I'm really happy with where I ended up. So there are times then when you feel na it's really hard to land the job, especially during this time. I mean, it's a difficult situation. Um, Another thing pala I haven't mentioned was that alongside this job that I have right now, one of the things that I did to adapt to this pandemic quarantine situation was to have like an e-commerce like company or like a brand website. So right now I'm running small business with my girlfriend, and it's something then that you could think about and what you can do if
Yeah.
during this time. So it's a lot of adapting is happening right now for me, and a lot of opportunities are presented, and I just want to grab it as much as I can. So yeah, but that feeling that you're finally employed and you're gonna get like a salary and stuff like that, it's a great feeling. I mean, it's something that you want to really. It's a situation wherein you want to prove yourself even more. Once you get hired, you want to keep doing a good job and keep it up for a really long time.
Yep, that is so true. But yo, guys, sorry, gotta interrupt this podcast for a while because if you guys haven't heard, we just got news that Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther, he passed away due to
So that.
cancer. That's what I just saw on Twitter. Uh, Again, sorry for breaking the rules, but FU 2020, sobrang quota ka na. Get your
So
get your
bad,
crap
man.
together fast. But yo, RIP to Chadwick Boseman. Wakanda forever. Mhm. Yeah, I just got the news now. This is definitely off topic, but definitely we have to pay our respects. And yeah, it's just been that type of year. We just can't seem to catch a break as the world goes on. So
S-
yeah, did you hear the news now, lang, or
No, actually, I saw it
before?
before we started. Yeah,
Yeah, it
sucks,
is.
man.
Man, I can't stand this year anymore, bro. I really can't. But
Man,
yeah, the show must go on. But yeah, we just wanted to pay our respects to one of Marvel's finest. I'm sure he's up there right now with his creator Stan Lee. Yeah, I mean, I'm speechless to be honest. Like another headline that caught us off guard.
sad.
Mhm. All right, so sorry about that, guys. Let's go back to this podcast. But again, just want to let you know that this is why we have to maximize every day. Like even in the works, even in the jobs that you pursue, like tomorrow is just never promised, and it's really not. So whatever you guys are doing, whether it's doing this podcast, pursuing that online work, acing that interview, and doing all that stuff, you really have to maximize every day because, yeah, I swear, tomorrow is just not promised. And it's actually kind of perfect because we're about to wrap up this podcast now. Because we pretty much covered everything that we need to talk about with regards to employment, from cover letters to resumes to that first interview to the moment you get hired. So, uh, I guess before we wrap it up, uh, how do you like create some sort of rhythm? Like, how do you behave well or accordingly, like in the workplace? Like, a couple of weeks in, I'm sure naninibago ka pa and all that. And me personally, even though it's been 2 weeks, I'm still trying to get a rhythm. I'm still trying to get a groove with things. And once again, I have to give a quick shout out to my co-workers and mentors that have really just guided me along the way. I'm sure you can say the same thing for your
Yeah, for sure, for
mentor.
sure.
So, how's the process like so far for you? Like, I'd really like to know.
Oh,
Mahirap ba? Madali? Like,
well, for my personal experience, I'm having a really, I guess, great time with how I've been um doing the work I'm in right now. So my first week just ended, so there are a lot of things but that I can improve on. And I guess what's important is that you get a feel of what like meetings would feel like, of what your working would feel like. and it'll really help if you get yourself in a routine or like a more familiar setting if you're gonna work here in your room or like somewhere more private, or maybe you would work better if you were outside, so stuff like that. I mean, I think it's really important to try to get a routine, because like if for example you've been in school for like more than like 12 years and stuff, it's a routine that you go through every day. You have to wake up at this time, you leave at this certain time, you go home at a certain time. So, and then all of a sudden this pandemic happened, so a lot of people, their routines just really disappeared. They would just sleep late whenever, because there's no physical classes the next day. So I would admit that's also something that happened to me, and it made it's making the transition to going back to a routine much more difficult. So I guess it's important to, before you one of the things you can do to prepare for like a new job or stuff like that is to have a space where you're most productive, where you can do work, and have a routine wherein your body would already help you prepare mentally, physically, for the type of things you're going to go through for the day. Time management is really important, and at the same time you should also take care of your mental health. So you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself for the things that you have to do, especially if you have a new job, because you might be putting too much pressure on yourself and wanting to succeed right away. I mean, it's a difficult time, so you should take it easy as well.
Yeah.
You have a lot of you should allot some time to also do stuff that will make you happy, or like to de-stress and stuff like that. So I don't know, play an instrument, watch Netflix if that's your thing,
Yeah. Start a
sports,
podcast.
or yeah, or like daily routines like workout and stuff like that. So I guess on top of all the things you have to do for work, you should never forget to do the things for yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all about work-life balance. Pa
exactly.
rin, like despite work. Of course, work is top priority because you want to get the big bucks later on. But at the same time, my mentor Darren even told this to me. The last thing you want to do is, or the last thing you want to feel is, burnout. So,
Yeah,
because if you also burn yourself out, the work that you'll produce isn't really as high quality. So, it's just all about balancing uh, everything that you have on your plate. So, with that, do you have any last words? Like, what do you want to say to our viewers, regardless of their season, whether they're in the middle of looking for work, whether they're unemployed, taking a break, thinking about what to do with their lives, or for those like us who are recent hires, or maybe even those who've been in the workforce for about 5 to 10 years already. So, what are your advices or your pieces of advice for anyone who may be going through whatever season they're going through right now?
I guess one thing that I do want to say is that um, as a psych graduate, really take care of yourself and your mental health. So I really can't advocate this enough, but in anything you do in life, if you're the type to want to, I don't know, have a family or like career person, at the end of the day, you should always take care of yourself and do things that will make you happy. It'll go a long way as well with the rest of the things in your life. And yeah, it's just really important to look out for yourself as well.
Yes, definitely, definitely. For me naman, I guess, well, for those who are still unemployed, take your time. Really take your time. Like, I understand, the thrill of wanting to get work and all that, but trust me, like, once you start working, pang habang buhay na. Of course, you can resign, no, but basically, you're gonna be busy the rest of your life. So, for those who are aching to get started na, it's good to be excited, but at the same time, enjoy the rest that you have. Like, enjoy all the downtime that you have right now. Because trust me, once you start working, you're gonna miss those days. For those that are in the process of getting hired, or who are like setting up their CVs and all that, get some help also. Like, it's good to do these things independently, because eventually we need to start getting independent. But wag kayo mahiya humingi ng tulong because they'll really go a long way. Like a couple of edits here, a couple of accomplishments there, and all that. They'll really just bolster your chances of getting employed. Of course, for the interview, like it's not you. So long as you practice and all that, bahala na eventually. But of course, preparation is key. And regardless of who you are going to be interviewed by, like, of course, practice good rapport. Don't take anything too personally, and just have fun. Believe it or not, even though it's work related, just have fun, enjoy the process, and these things will stick with you for the rest of your life. Believe it or not. And for those who are recent hires, like Carlos and I, it's gonna be tough at first. Like me personally, I almost had another emotional breakdown after starting out my first article, and there will be writer's block, or I don't know if there's such a thing as worker's block, but it's okay to get blanked out once in a while. It's just all about setting a good pace for yourself, taking time, but still getting the job done, of course. Like at the end of the day, that's really what's most important. But also, that can't happen if you can't take care of yourself. So self-care is really important, regardless of where you are at right now with your work. And lastly, for those who may be in the workplace for quite some time now, longer than the two of us, ayun nga, just keep working hard, but at the same time, maintain a solid work-life balance. So pick up a hobby or just detox. Like my dad was just telling me nga na, after Fridays, mag-inuman kayo.
Like, for sure.
I realized it late. Like I've never had wine or beer in college, but now, like after my second or third day of work, like I literally had to sip Moscato wine, like literally. So yeah, just enjoy talaga. Like it's all about self-growth. It's all about continued development, and it's all about just being a better person naman at the end of the day. So with that, any last words like before we wrap it up na talaga?
I guess I just want to shout out our coworkers and mentors. Thanks for hiring us.
Yes.
And shout out to my girlfriend. Hi, I hope you're watching this. And yeah, I guess that's it.
All right. Oh yeah. By the way, do you have any plugs? Like, where can my listeners follow you? Do you have any businesses that you would like me to link up in my description on YouTube
Yeah, for sure,
or on
for sure.
FB and IG? Like, go ahead.
I guess shameless plug. Check out Eterna.activewear on Instagram. It's a small business that helping my girlfriend with. So yeah, at eterna.activewear on Instagram. That's it.
Yep. There you go. Yep. Support local businesses always.
Yep, for sure.
Mhm. So now that we're done talking about work. Yep. It's all about working. But now that we're done talking about employment and a whole lot of work, these are my plugs. If you want to follow me on IG, the podcast account, it is at JOAT.pod.delro. Again, it is at JOAT.pod.delro. If you want to follow my personal account on IG, it is at Jake_Delro. If you want to check me out on Twitter, it is at _Del_Ro_. If you want to check me out on Facebook, it is facebook.com/JOAT.pod.delro. So it's basically the same as my Instagram. Or if you just want to type it on the search tab, it is JakeOfAllTradesWithDelRo. This podcast can be streamed, televised, viewed, and listened to on the following platforms. So you have Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, and YouTube. So with that out of the way, man, 2020 has just not been it. I'm still devastated by the news, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the MCU. I'm not a diehard like maybe some of y'all, but basically just carpe diem, just YOLO, the heck out of this year. Really just
Keep
try
going.
out these things.
Keep going,
Keep
man.
going. Look for work if you're really ready, and really just pursue something that you feel passionate about. It may not be your direct line, like it may not be related to your course, but it doesn't matter. Like it should be something that you enjoy, and of course, another tip, like, don't do it for the money lang. Of course,
Yeah.
we want to get paid later on, but you can get a high paying job but you're not enjoying. Like, what's the point then, diba? So it's all about just developing yourself, growing, and just doing something that you thoroughly love. Like the money and all that stuff, that's gonna come later. But at the end of the day, it's all about just being passionate. All right.
Yep.
So with that being said, that's a wrap, y'all. Thank you for tuning in today, mga Del Bros at Sisters. This has been your one and only Jake of all trades, and I am Delro, signing out. Hanggang sa susunod na usapan at chikahan. See ya and Wakanda forever.
Thanks for having me. All right.
Sure thing.